All right, let's revisit this list here that we talked about earlier. I mean, it is a list, but I guess it's more so rankings, and it's got a lot of attention locally for good reason because it does feature Louisville and Kenny Payne. So Jeff Goodman, a college basketball insider reporter, he is now writing for the messenger.com, and the majority of his work that you see is on the Field of 68 on their digital platform. But he ranked the 20 worst coaching hires in college basketball since 2000. And when I saw the headline, I thought to myself, Kenny Payne, he's either towards the very top or he's not on there at all. And I thought that because he's still coaching. Like, I don't think there are many. I mean, I'm looking here, just scrolling through the rankings. I don't think, and John, you've seen it too, I don't think there's any coaches that are currently coaching at the school that they, were at the time when they were, of course, a terrible hire. The one coach, I mean, Billy Gillespie's still coaching, but not at the places that hired him. So Kenny Payne's number one, and I'll read for you what Jeff wrote in his write-up about why Kenny's number one. And again, this is from Jeff Goodman. It says Payne seemed like the perfect choice, and he had complete support to take over the program as a former Louisville star who played in the NBA and then worked as a longtime college assistant. Prior to taking over the Cardinals, Payne had been working as an assistant coach with the New York Knicks. In March of 2022, he replaced Chris Mack in Louisville, and he's been beyond miserable. The Cardinals won only 4 games in the first season, and they are 6-10 this season with back-to-back losses at DePaul and at home against Arkansas State. It's almost unfathomable how low Payne has taken this once-storied program that has won 3 national titles. So look, that's a bummer to see, but it makes total sense. I can't really disagree with it. Louisville right now, again, they're playing better basketball, and that's at least better to watch as a fan. I don't think it changes the way people view Kenny as a coach and the overall era that has been the Kenny Payne era that has been, again, unbelievably bad. But, it makes total sense. I mean, he won 4 games last year, and people can claim that may not have been, anything to do with him. In fact, I know that's not true, and I don't know how many people believe that. But either way, he won 4 games, and then he started this year with, I mean, if you really want to get into the specifics of each schedule, I mean, last year they played in Maui. Last year they played teams that are name-wise similar, but not, like, for example, last year when they played Wright State, they were legitimately a good mid-major. App State, a good mid-major. And then they played 3 top 50 teams in Maui. Then they played Maryland in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. Then they played Miami. So, and then they lost to Lipscomb. So, by the way, Bellarmine, Wright State, App State, those are all teams they lost to. You throw Lipscomb in there. So, that's awful to lose that many. They started, 0-9? But this year, they clearly had wins early on that they didn't have. But they were barely beating these teams, and these teams are way worse. Like when you hear, I think the average college basketball fan hears Wright State and they hear Coppin State, and they may not know there's a difference. There's a massive difference. So with the schedule, I mean, before they started playing better, really, I guess before the Miami game, it was not a hot take or an exaggeration or being a hater, as some people call it, to say that they were worse. Like their results, their resume. You can say that, hey, they're getting better. If you can't see they're getting better, then you're a hater. And that's fine. But I mean, let's be honest, like they're playing really bad teams, and for the most part, they were still losing. So before they started playing better and beat Miami, and then, NC State, even the Pittsburgh game, I think at times was more competitive than you would have thought. You were in the midst of potentially being just as bad or maybe worse than a year ago. So we know Louisville is playing better basketball. If you're watching, the Miami game was easily their best win of the 10 that they have with Kenny. NC State, it was fun to see them compete, and I was enjoying it from a fan standpoint because, again, they still lost. I don't think they're good, but, man, that's a lot better as a fan than watching them get killed by Pittsburgh, Virginia, Kentucky, Arkansas State, DePaul, Virginia Tech. So that was, we know that's happened, but overall, objectively, people aren't looking at the Louisville Kenny Payne situation any differently based off that because it's just too far gone. So, I said it during the offseason. And I remember where I was when I said it, because it was one of those things that, and this isn't like, hey, I told you so, because it's not even like I'm giving you some like big opinion, but whenever I was trying to internally in real time on the air change my psyche, right? Because everybody claims I'm a hater. I'm a realist. I can't believe that Louisville's going to be better when I haven't seen anything to show me that. I mean, you can just have blind faith that, hey, last year, forget about it. That was everybody else's fault. Kenny's got his guys now; they're going to be great. I can't do that. If I would, I could, because that would be a better mental place to be in for the entire offseason than just worrying, oh, wow, we brought Kenny Payne back, and I'm not sure it's going to be much better. And sure enough, that's where we are right now. But I remember we were at Churchill Downs doing the show in the media box there during Derby week. And I thought to myself aloud on the show, this is either going to be a breakthrough year for Kenny, where with this influx of young talent and new pieces, they're going to take a big jump and be a competitive team that might have a chance to make the tournament. Or we're going to continue to see things play out the way we watched in year one, regardless of personnel, regardless of anything, the way he coaches, his inability to lead. They don't have any defensive principles. They don't run any real offense. And all the other things too. I mean, there's off the court things that are another sign of this guy's in over his head. So I said he's either going to be one of two things. He's going to break through, and they're going to have a tournament caliber team, and we're going to feel like, okay, year one sucked, but man, hey, at least this is heading in a direction that you can see light at the end of the tunnel. Or he'll be really bad again, and we'll look at this as potentially the worst hire in college basketball history. And that sounds like such hyperbole. Sounds like such an exaggeration, but it's not. And this list from Jeff Goodman may not prove anything to you, and it shouldn't. It's one person with an opinion, but this is an objective person that probably knows more about college basketball hires and how they work than anybody. And that's not to kiss Jeff's ass. It's just the truth. He is probably as connected as anybody when it comes to college basketball. And he's been pretty, I don't think he goes out of his way, but when Louisville comes up on their show, Field of 68, I mean, he kind of is like me at times and fans at times, because you don't really know what to say other than what he wrote, which is, it's unfathomable how miserable this has been under Kenny Payne. So to see that, and then to see Louisville open up as a 22-point dog against Carolina, it's just a reminder that despite them playing better, and they deserve credit for playing better, meaning like the players, and even Kenny, you can give Kenny credit too if you want. I don't know what he's going to do with it, but hey, they're at least not as miserable as they were. But Louisville basketball is so far from what it should be, to where I don't believe there's any scenario that could play out the rest of the way that would have fans thinking, all right, let's keep doing this. This is eventually going to work out. This is eventually going to be the guy that can get us to competing for Final Fours, because that's what Louisville basketball is. And that's why I continue to say there's really two different conversations to have. One is, hey, I'm going to watch him because I can't not watch him. It's what I do. I'm a diehard fan. I've got a lot of emotional investment in this program as a fan. I can't not watch him. So knowing that they're at least more watchable now and they're fighting hard, Mike James is playing his ass off, the young guys are showing a lot of upside. That is a better experience as a fan. And I'll take that every day over what we've gone through for the majority of this era that is the Kenny Payne era. But the other conversation is still very much, it's really not a conversation. It's just the situation. They're going to need a new coach at the end of this year. Now, will they do that? That's up to Josh Hurd. And I don't even really think there's I'm sure you could find the conversation if you look hard enough, but I don't hear anybody out there acting like, should Louisville make a change? Maybe there's some people, but for the most part, everybody realizes you got to make a move or you'll continue to fall flat. And as I've said, and this sounds like an exaggeration, but I mean it. If Louisville ends up with the record that they're projected to have right now in the KenPom, which currently they are projected to finish this season 9-22 overall, 4-16 in the ACC. If that is what happens, or anything close to that, let's just say they go anywhere from 9 wins to 13 wins. If that's the situation, and U of L decides to just keep this going and they don't make a change, that will be a full-on confirmation that the university does not value the program like they used to. Because there'd be no scenario other than you just for sympathy, maybe hey, maybe he'll work out. He played here, because the reality is this: if you open the job, you'll have legit interest from really good coaches that could come in and instantly make you a lot better. Doesn't mean you're going to go to Final Four. Doesn't mean you're going to be nationally relevant overnight, but that can happen. So, I needed to see this list today. I needed to see minus 21 because I felt myself not thinking Kenny should be the guy long term. But when you've been so miserable and then you see this team actually playing better basketball, and you can see there is some young talent there, and Mike James, again, playing as good as anybody in the last 3 games, it helps me keep it in perspective. Again, 2 different conversations. I'm going to watch them and hope they keep playing the way they did the last couple of games because that's a better experience as a fan. But overall, we know there's going to need to be a change made at the end of the year. I think the conversation's not about should there be a change. It's about who's it going to be. But as I've said a million times, it comes down to one person making that decision, I believe, and that's Josh Hurd. And I'm going to assume he will make the decision and move on from Kenny, but only time will tell, I guess. All right, quick break. We'll come back on the other side, our final segment here on a Tuesday afternoon. Coffee and Company, fueled by Thornton's on Sports Talk 790.